They put us on our teams to go out, and I was walking point, and I ran into about 13 NBA sitting eating. I was pretty good at finding stuff like that, but I literally walked into them, and I could just still remember them, like look, there's the look on their eyes because it was really close. And so I pulled up and I fired. And one of the, the things that you practice was, I empty a magazine and then I turn to run back behind the slack man who empties a magazine and to pull back because, you're a small team
Right.
and you don't know how that could be the point element of a much larger NBA group. So I turn around to run and I look up and the two guys behind me were just running. It scared them. So there was a guy, and I hate to say this, but one of them was a special forces captain he was there just to get his Recondo patch. And oh man, LePage was an E7, but he had more power out in the jungle than that captain did. And that guy was, I mean, LePage was so pissed off you couldn't believe it. But they ran on us. So I'm left out there in the open, and I just turned around and started firing. And then the next thing I heard was LePage coming to get out of the way. And I heard him coming over, and he had a sawed off M79. He was shooting, putting down uh, fire. So we got out of there, and then we pulled back, and then I think it was the next day we were going to go back in the same place. And but by then they brought in the reaction force of guys from their it was from Reconnaissance school, which was a bunch of CIDG guys, mercenaries and
Yeah.
mountain. So look, Page he goes, you guys pissed me off, Chambers. You're going to lead, you're going to be the point man, and dude, you're going to be behind him. And I was like, okay. So this is my dream come true. I hate to say it sounds really bizarre. My dream come true was to lead men into combat. But to me, it was like combat, like World War II combat, and I'm out in front and I'm walking and I was pretty, like I said, I was pretty good at finding stuff. First thing I did was I found the spot, and there was 13 packs all in a circle. So those guys had capped out. There was nobody there. So the guys are checking them, and I went on with duty. We went on a hit and LePage. We went, further up this trail, and I'm walking, and suddenly this NVA steps out from this tree, like right there in front of me, and I could see he didn't have a weapon on, and I'm not going to shoot some unarmed guy, even though that's what you're supposed to do in that situation.
Mm.
But I tried to get him to stop and to ching whatever however we said surrender, but he didn't. He turned around and
Oh,
started running. You
Chuhoi.
know, yeah,
Yeah.
started running into the jungle. So I just ran after him and I tackled him like a football tackle and got him down on the ground. And he was yelling, like for his buddies. And I took my car 15, which is, like that big with the little flash suppressor on it. And I turned it around and stuck it. So it was like in the side of his mouth and he shut up. And I'm on the top of him on the ground like this. And LePage comes up and he goes, I wouldn't pull the trigger if I were you, because I looked down and I had the thing would have shot through him and shot into my leg, would have shot myself. It was one of those kind of funny moments later that we talked about.
Right.
But he had the NBA officer's belt buckle on. I even brought it. I got it out here. This was his. Let's see if I can have it like that. Boom. That's the NBA officer belt buckle, which I obviously got. And then I used to wear that around, even when I went out on missions. That's how cocky we were. It's kind of stupid, but
Well, no, I want to ask you about that buckle because you mentioned it a number of times
yeah.
in your books. You still have it, and then you're wearing it as part of your uniform, which is not, that's not regulation.
Oh,
Um,
no, look, please, there's no regulation.
Slightly not regulation. So that belt buckle obviously is very meaningful to you.
Yeah.
What is what is the importance of that buckle? What does that buckle mean to you? What did
Well,
it
man,
mean
I
then? What does it
captured,
mean to you now?
well, man, I captured this guy and I didn't kill him. I captured a live NVA, which is, if you're in an intelligence gathering, the best source of intelligence is a live guy that's right out in the field.
Imagine yourself walking around base or even walking point. and you're wearing that NVA buckle. I mean, that, especially walking point, because I'm thinking if you get caught, if
Oh,
they
they're going to kill
for
the shit out
you
of me.
and you're
Yeah.
wearing that buckle, I mean, it's going to be bad no matter what. But if you're
Mhm.
wearing the buckle, it might even be worse.
Probably worse.
So that tell, and you know that at the time that you're wearing this buckle, you're on point. You know that that's actually putting you in a potentially even hairier spot than you might be in otherwise. So why are you wearing it? What's the significance of this? This thing obviously has some serious significance to
I
you.
didn't know anybody else that had one, number one. And I got offered $500 by some officer in Saigon to buy it from me. And to me, it was like wearing a Super Bowl ring or something. I don't know. In my mind, it was valuable. It meant that I was something. That I even on point. I I thought it gave me luck. I don't know. It just um,
Mm, mhm.
it had a meaning for me, that like I really made it. I don't know, something like that. I can't
Sense of accomplishment.
sense of accomplishment or something. Because remember, I'm only 19, 20 years old at the time. So this is the biggest thing I've ever done.
Now you say that you're walking point and you come to a group of NVA who are having lunch. So that tells me that you're being extremely quiet. And of course,
Hmm.
you talk about the line troops, or you can hear them a mile away, but the LERPs are just moving very
Yeah.
slowly, very quietly. You were good at walking point. What are the traits of a what are the traits a person needs to be successful walking point in Vietnam?
You're gonna think this is strange, but I think the more ADD you are, the better you make as a point man. And people, are like, what? That makes no sense. All through school, I was sitting in the back of the class and I was dyslexic too, and I couldn't read with comprehension, and I was all over the board. I talked too much. I was like, blah, blah. But what I found, especially when I went through paratroopers the first time and I jumped out of a plane, everything got quiet and wow, I could think. It was like it opened up the prefrontal cortex of my brain. So I even wrote this to the Department of Army that they should, you want to find some guys that make, good soldiers, take guys that, dyslexic and ADD because they'll probably make the best. And here's why. There, it was almost like you call it sixth sense or whatever. I contributed to being hyper vigilant like that. That you hear a click and you're on it just like that, where maybe somebody wouldn't. So that hyper vigilance, and I sort of had this ability to slow time down. I mean, walking into those 13 guys was no big deal. The biggest one was on a mission, on an alert mission where with John Burford was a team leader and I was a point man. And I walked in, I just had this sense, and maybe you see something subconsciously on the ground or something wasn't right or the birds weren't chirp, but something was going on. But I stopped the team, told them to wait, and got off that trail. And I went into the jungle and I went around and I was invisible in the jungle. And I walked around and I can remember I was stepping over this log and I looked down and literally like maybe 3 feet in front of me is this guy sitting down there. They were eating too. It seems like the Viet Cong were eating a lot when I was around, but they had set up an ambush on this trail. But this guy was right there, and I could see he was eating, and he even heard me. And I remember he turned around and he looked right at me, but he couldn't see me. You know, I
Wow.
mean, that belt buckle was hidden. Your shirt's over it, so there's no shine. My face is all into the
Wow.
stuff. He couldn't, I was invisible. And I remember looking at him and then I started seeing guys were coming in focus all the way down. And I started just really quietly pulling back. But you just you just became, I remember thinking like at one time I just became part of the jungle. I was comfortable in the jungle. I was comfortable in that, more than maybe most guys would be.
How close were you to that NVA when he looked at you but didn't see you?
He literally was. like I say, 3 or 4 feet away. I mean, he was
Wow.
right there. I could see the back of his head. I could almost count the hairs on his head. He was that close. So when he looked around, he probably looked into my chest, which is all camouflage, and I'm like frozen. I'm frozen half step. So I haven't even, my foot's just resting on this log and not moving at all, and just no sound whatsoever.
So I'm not going to ask you what you were thinking because I think I know the answer to that is nothing.
Nothing. You're right. I didn't think of
Yeah.
anything. People say, "What do you think?" You're not thinking of anything. You're just, you're in the flight or fight mode part of your brain.
Well, I want to ask you, so, you're not having philosophical thoughts and that kind of thing, but how would you describe, because you can see it, you can see him right now, there
Oh,
he
I
is,
just
you can see him.
see him.
Describe yourself, I mean, describe your own state of being. So you're not having, you're not processing thoughts or anything, but how would you describe your state of being at that moment? When you can see him, he's looking at you, but he doesn't see you.
Well, the best way to describe this, because it was dark in the jungle triple canopy, I was invisible to him. And I can remember when I was little or something that I was, there was, I was afraid to go out in the dark. And I think it was my Uncle Floyd or somebody told me, look, if they can't if you can't see them, they can't see you. And I was stuck with me. If I'm really in the dark, if I'm in the jungle deep in it, and they can't, I can't see them, which we couldn't till we're right on them, they can't see me. So I guess my state of mind was I'm just invisible. Um, it's hard to say I had a state of mind because there was no thought. So when I go back, when my memory goes back to it, there's nothing there, except the image of those guys. I've got that image.
So you very slowly back up and get back with your guys, and then what happens?
Well, I get back to where Burford is, and he said he could count the number of enemy soldiers in my eyes, because they were like gigantic. And we're still not talking, but he knew we had to get out of there. So we took off running, and the rest of the team was um, quite a ways back from us because we did a point recon with his to get, where that happened. So we pulled back, but we're out in the middle of this sort of field, and I remember there was this big bushes right there, and we kind of hid behind them. And so I went to the front of the bushes, and Burford was behind, talking to John Looney on the radio, trying to get a reaction force in, and telling the guys what he wants us to do. And I'm just watching, and I'm actually disappointed because I don't see anybody. And I started, did I imagine that? Did that not happen? And then suddenly up pops a head, and they're only about 30 meters away, but up pops this guy. And then he pulls up binoculars, and he's looking like this, and he's looking like right where I'm at. And I see him going like, which means flank. And I watched this one guy take, it was like one of our old parachutes or something, which is all camouflage. And he flicked it like that and put it over his head, and then he disappeared. And I thought, we're about to be flanked. This is not good.
Um,
So I pushed back through this brush, and I remember breaking stuff off of my neck and everything. And I get back to Burford, and I said, they've spotted, they're coming, they know where we're at. So he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I want you, I'm gonna count to three. I want you guys are gonna deed him out of here. Chambers and I will stay. And but he always was, why do I have to stay? But he would go, Chambers and I are gonna stay and open up on them. And so he just, 1, 2, 3, and we both stood up so we could fire because we were like down on our backs. And we stood up, and then we both started firing at guys. And I can remember Burford was like on my right. And I remember hearing bullets, coming through like right between us. So it was that close of a firefight. And then he knew how to leapfrog. We got the heck out of there, and there was this hill that we had to climb up, and the guys were shooting from up above. And then once we got up there, we felt safe because we had the high ground. Before they had kind of the angle on us. So yeah,
wow.
and then I was thinking real clearly then.
And so did you call in fire support, artillery on them, or how does this situation,
It was
or you
pretty
just
pretty
separate and that's it?
Yeah, we separate. It was pretty close to calling artillery because we could fire as what's called the gun target line. We could call in danger close and fire on a gun target line. Infantry units can't do that because that means the round's going right over your head. But we were so close. I frankly don't remember if we called in artillery. I don't think so because we were just putting down suppressive fire until a reaction force. We had the 2nd to 17 Cav. They had, two platoons of guys that would come in and then sweep the area. There was an
Yeah.
infantry, but and then they pull us out. And that's what happened. Not kind of what happened, that's what happened.